A large part of the reason Melee's withstood the test of time is its free-form movement. Melee's physics engine has appealed to players of all skill levels for many years, as techniques such as dash dancing and wave dashing give the game a tremendous amount of appeal. However, what makes Melee even more interesting is that there are plenty of hidden movement optimizations as well. These make all the difference at the top level, as every frame and every decision matter a lot at that point. Today I'll be going over 13 movement optimizations that I feel are important to share. Some of these are decently well known, while others haven't hit the mainstream at all. I'm personally very excited about this video, as I'm certain that anyone who watches it all the way through will find at least something that'll improve their game. If you're a fan of this kind of Melee content, please consider taking a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I've also provided a link to my Twitch channel where I've been streaming very often as of late. Thank you for your support. For the first chapter of this video, I'll be going over one of the most basic rules of the game that players generally aren't aware of, which is that dash forward is a commitment. I'll explain what I mean by this. Once your character has broken into a dash dance, they'll strictly be performing backward dashes. As you can see, each dash back consists of 2 frames, a turn frame followed by a dash frame. You then have the option to perform a shield or a dash attack on frame 3 if you so choose. When you dash forward, however, you're making more of a commitment. The Melee engine doesn't let you shield or dash attack until frame 5 out of a dash forward. This matters a lot in real time, as the 2-frame disadvantage can lead to you losing neutral game interactions which would have otherwise been safe. I recommend keeping this tip in mind, as dash forward is a weaker animation than most people are aware of. The next tip is to avoid running against wave dash momentum. To show you what I mean, let's start by taking a look at what happens when Fox initiates a run from the wait animation. As you can see, Fox's velocity jumps to 2.02 and then proceeds to accelerate by 0.12 on each frame. This eventually caps at 2.2, which is Fox's maximum run velocity. If we start by wave dashing backward, however, things won't play out the same way. From here, Fox will start with negative forward velocity. Then, if we dash forward, Fox will get the same velocity boost followed by a 0.12 increase on each dash frame. However, he'll enter the run state before reaching his maximum velocity. This ends up being a problem because once Fox enters the run state, the velocity calculations no longer work the same way. As you can see, Fox's velocity increases by a minuscule amount on each frame from this point onward, and he ends up being unable to reach his maximum velocity. For these reasons, you should generally look to avoid running against wave dash momentum in competitive play. Now that we've gone over why you shouldn't run against wave dash momentum, let's go over the workaround. The double dash momentum cancel is the best way to get around bad wave dash momentum. To show you what I mean, let's replay the scenario in which Fox wave dashes backward. From here, let's dash back twice in order to get Fox dashing in the direction we want. As you can see, the turn frame causes Fox's velocity to leap forward in the desired direction. To be exact, turn kills Fox's velocity by 75%, and then some traction calculations occur on this frame as well. From this position, Fox's velocity will increase by 0.12 on each dash frame, and he'll eventually be able to reach his maximum velocity. This trick can also be performed by dashing forward then backward, but that'll take 2 more frames for the reasons we've gone over. A dash forward followed by a dash backward will take 6 frames in total, while 2 dashbacks will take 4 frames. The next movement optimization is yet another one that has to do with the turn state. Ever since UCF fixed Smash Turn 7 years ago, it became possible to perform a Smash Turn wave dash back, which is the best way for many characters to get onto the ledge quickly. To show you what I mean, this technique is performed by inputting Smash Turn for a single frame, which is enough to cause Jump Squat to face the opposite direction. From there, you can wave dash back onto the ledge very quickly. Something important to note is that this technique is easier to perform if you're playing a character with a higher number of Jump Squat frames, as that'll give you more time to alternate from one side to the other. For similar reasons, this technique is easier to perform on the box than it is on a GameCube controller. The next movement trick is one that I like to perform out of a dash dance. This trick involves using the C-stick to perform roll and spot dodge more effectively. The reason this trick has merit is because when you're dash dancing, your left hand will be occupied by the analog stick, and so there will be no way to perform roll or spot dodge frame perfectly because of recoil. The best way around this is to roll or spot dodge by using the C-stick. Part of what makes this technique so great is that you generally don't have to worry about activating the C-stick while dashing, as nothing will come out even if you press it accidentally. The only exception is if you activate the C-stick on the exact frame after turn, but that can easily be avoided with enough practice. I definitely recommend incorporating this technique, as it'll speed up your rolls and spot dodges by several frames. The next strategy is one of the most hidden movement optimizations in the game. Believe it or not, dash JC grabbing frame perfectly can be considered a movement optimization due to the way traction works in Melee. To show you what I mean, take a look at Falcon's velocity when he performs an imperfect dash JC grab. If we dash forward for 1 frame, then enter jump squat for 2 frames, Falcon goes from 1.84 to 1.68, which means he decelerated by 0.16 on the second jump squat frame. If we then input grab on the next frame, Falcon will start decelerating by 0.08. This is due to the fact that grab is a single traction animation state, whereas jump squat is double traction. If we input JC grab on the exact frame after jump squat, Falcon will start decelerating by 0.08 a frame earlier. This ends up adding up, since it means he'll have more velocity on each subsequent frame. As someone familiar with this trick, I can usually notice when I performed a frame perfect dash JC grab, as my character's movement feels smoother whenever I successfully perform one. For these reasons, I recommend not being lazy about your dash JC grab inputs. The next strategy is similar in that there's another movement trick which you shouldn't be lazy about. In recent years, ledge-cancelled aerials have risen to prominence in competitive play due to how strong it is to reduce the amount of lag on aerial attacks. Players like Zane have crafted their combo game largely around this technique, for example. However, what even many of the best players don't know is that the number of frames you save by ledge-cancelling your aerial can vary. Take this slow-mo, for example. In this clip, Marth performs a forward air, then slides forward in landing lag for 3 frames before entering fall on the next frame. This makes for a great improvement over his usual landing lag of 7 frames, but there's a way to make it even better. In this next clip, Marth enters forward air landing lag at the very edge of the platform. This allows him to enter fall on the very next frame, which means Marth only spends 2 frames in downtime. Just like with the dash JC grab trick we went over earlier, it's good to optimize your ledge-cancelled aerials in this manner, as the advantage makes a difference. The next movement optimization is shield stop. Shield stopping is one of the most efficient movement options in the entirety of Melee, as it involves cancelling 75% of your dash or run momentum by shielding for a single frame. As you can see, Fox is able to eliminate the vast majority of his dash velocity by shielding. This can be used to perform all sorts of setups such as this one, in which I shield stop to get on the other side of Falco, then perform a reverse nair to finish the combo. The next trick is shield drop fastfall, which tends to get overlooked entirely except for by a few top players. Shield drop fastfall involves shield dropping, then fast falling afterward in order to reach the ground floor a few frames quicker. While this may not seem worth the effort, I can't stress enough that every frame matters in Melee, and that techniques like this one are worth incorporating. Shield drop fastfall is the reason players like Plup are able to navigate the platform so quickly, for example. Next up is yet another platform-related optimization. This one will be my quickest tip in the video, as all it pertains to is a quick fact about the game engine that everyone should know. When you dash or run off of a platform, the first frame that's eligible for a fastfall is the 3rd fall frame. I've included a clip for proof of this. Because fastfall has a 4-frame buffer, this means that the first eligible frame for inputting the fastfall is the final frame you spend on the platform, as your down input will register the fastfall for exactly the 3rd fall frame during that input sequence. Make sure to keep this tip in mind for optimal platform movement. Next, we have one last platform-related optimization. This one will help improve your movement in the upward direction. An instant double jump is the best way in the game to make it to the side platforms. Normally, you may make the mistake of doing this by tapping the jump button twice and then wave landing down. The reason this method is inferior to instant double jump is because the initial jump will be a short hop if you tap the button, whereas it would have been better to perform a full hop in order to elevate your character faster. In the clip we just saw, for example, Fox air dodged onto the battlefield side platform on the 11th airborne frame. If we started things off by performing a full hop instead, then he would have been able to land on the 9th frame. In order to start things off with a full hop, we'll need to use a Z-jump layout. This is because 2 different fingers are needed in order to jump twice without the first input being a tap. There's also a unique input sequence that I recommend knowing about if you're using a box. On the box, you can press up then X in order to instant double jump ergonomically by keeping all of your inputs on the home row. Now that we've gone over the best inputs, I recommend experimenting with this technique, as it'll save most characters a few frames when you're looking to make it to the side platform. The next trick is wave dash forward teeter cancel out of shield. That may sound like a mouthful, so I'll explain what it all means. There's a common situation in the neutral game which isn't nearly as disadvantageous as it looks so long as you know about this trick. When your opponent pressures you to the corner, you may find yourself stuck in shield and facing outward. This scenario is horrible at first glance, as you can't threaten a shield grab or do very much from this position. However, there happens to be a great way to flip this situation on your opponent. By wave dashing forward, you can teeter cancel your air dodge landing lag and then immediately approach your opponent afterward. This technique is made even better by the fact that most players aren't used to it, and so I recommend taking advantage of this unexpected option. Finally, I've saved what I consider to be the strongest movement optimization for last. Double trigger air dodge is, in my opinion, one of the best improvements you can make to your game which hasn't hit the mainstream. Double trigger air dodge also ties into my video on JC Shines from last week, which I recommend watching if you haven't already. I'll explain what I mean by all of this. Ever since the early days of competitive Melee, wave dashing was recognized as a potent movement option. However, the game wasn't being played at nearly a high enough level back then for players to consider the benefits of air dodging with 2 triggers. I made a video which went over why this technique is so powerful a couple of years ago. I'll be recapping the key pointers from that video. The merit in double triggering your air dodge has to do with cleaning up choppy wave dashes. In this clip, I'm wave dashing with only 1 trigger. If we take a look at what's happening in slow-mo, I'm wave dashing frame perfectly the majority of the time, but I occasionally get a choppy wave dash. This is problematic because I have to assume that I'll receive the choppy wave dash timing when I go for inputs afterward. If I want to wave dash then up tilt, for example, I'll have to assume that I've received the choppy wave dash timing in order to ensure that the up tilt comes out. The way around this is to double trigger your air dodge. This is done by surrounding the first airborne frame with 2 air dodge inputs. If done correctly, this effectively turns the perfect wave dash timing into a 2-frame window, which is reliable enough for you to assume that your wave dash won't be choppy. From there, you can count on your subsequent inputs coming out after a perfect wave dash, which makes for an improvement of several frames. That leads me to the next benefit of double triggering that I ought to cover. Last week I released a video on tri-jump JC Shines. Within that video, there was a clip in which I showed myself performing tri-jump JC Shines consistently with ease. I explained that within the frame data, each of the air dodges being performed took place on the exact frame after the double jump. What I didn't explain, however, is that the way to achieve this consistently is to double trigger your air dodge. This is the only way to perform tri-jump JC Shines reliably, as you'll need your character to ground within a reasonable amount of time in order for it to be an effective technique. If your character double jumps for even a single extra frame after the shine, for example, then they won't be able to ground fast enough for the tri-jump JC Shine to be viable. To recap the video, we've gone over 13 movement optimizations in total. I'll recap each of them one at a time. First, it's important to know that dash forward is a commitment. Dash forward doesn't allow you to perform techniques such as shield or dash attack until frame 5, whereas dash back permits these techniques on frame 3, and so you should be wary of this animation state. Second, it's best not to run against wave dash momentum. Your character will usually end up with stunted run velocity if you make this mistake, which leads us to our next tip. Third, the way to avoid having stunted run velocity is to perform a double dash momentum cancel. This trick works because turn kills velocity by 75%, which will help your character redirect back to the desired direction and achieve maximum velocity. A double dash momentum cancel takes 6 frames to complete if you dash forward then dash backward, and 4 frames to complete if you dash backward twice. Fourth, yet another great trick involving turn is smash turn wave dash back. This is performed by inputting smash turn for a single frame to face the opposite direction, then wave dashing backward. You'll typically want to use this technique in order to make it onto the ledge quickly. Fifth, you should always use the C-stick to roll or spot dodge from a dash dance. This will save several frames because you'll bypass the recoil that you'd otherwise have by using the analog stick. The only downside to be wary of is that you'll perform a smash attack if you press the C-stick on the exact frame after turn, but this can be avoided with enough practice. Sixth, there is a secret benefit to dash JC grabbing frame perfectly. By entering the grab state on the exact frame after jump squat, you'll exit double traction and enter a single traction animation, which will translate to a much smoother dash JC grab. Seventh, the efficacy of ledge-cancelled aerials can vary. The best possible ledge-cancelled aerial is one that spends 1 frame in aerial landing lag and 1 frame in fall, which amounts to 2 frames of downtime in total. Try to place your aerial for the very edge of the platform in order to achieve this. Eighth, shield stop is yet another great technique for killing momentum. Entering shield kills momentum by 75% just like turn, and it does so in just a single frame. This is great for altering your character in the opposite direction very quickly. Ninth, you shouldn't forget to fastfall after shield dropping if your intention is to reach the ground floor as fast as possible. This will usually save a few frames, which shouldn't be underestimated. 10th, a hard-coded rule of the game's physics engine is that the first eligible fastfall frame after leaving a platform is frame 3. This means that the first eligible frame to input the fastfall is the final frame spent on the platform, because fastfall has a 4-frame buffer. 11th, instant double jump can be used to make it onto the side platform several frames faster by performing a full hop rather than a short hop. This input sequence is best performed with either a Z-jump layout or by pressing X then up on the box. 12th, there is a great way to escape what would otherwise be a horrible neutral game situation. When your character is cornered, shielding, and facing outward, you can wave dash forward and teeter cancel, then flip the situation on your opponent by approaching them unexpectedly. Finally, the 13th and best movement optimization is double trigger air dodge. By double triggering your air dodges, you're able to assume that your wave dash timing is perfect, which allows you to perform subsequent inputs frame perfectly as well. Double triggering your air dodge is also necessary in order to perform the tri-jump shines which we went over in last week's video. The 13 movement optimizations we've gone over will speed up your gameplay by a tremendous amount. If you want to move like the pros, then I recommend implementing all of these strategies. All in all, I would say that this video will level you up by more than just about any tutorial video I've ever released, as movement is largely what makes a melee player. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks again for supporting my channels. Make sure to stay tuned for next week's video, which will cover even more hidden neutral game concepts. Until then, take care.